Welcome. We're so happy to have you with us today. We're excited for Salon number 28, The Truth, The Gift of Truth in a World of Lies, which is part of the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series hosted by the International Feminists for a Gift Economy. I'm Letitia Layson, your moderator. We're thrilled to have Genevieve Vaughan, who will be sharing her insights and wisdom today. She'll speak for about an hour, and then we'll take questions for the second part of our session. We don't often get the opportunity to just have Jen all by herself. This year, this is the second salon that she's agreed to do as the solo speaker. So Genevieve Vaughan is an independent researcher who lives part-time in Italy and part-time in Texas. From 1987 to 2005, she created and founded a multicultural all-women activist foundation for a compassionate society. In 1992 to today, she founded the Temple of Sekhmet in the Nevada desert, and she co-created the network International Feminists for the Gift Economy in 2001. Her books are Forgiving, a Feminist Criticism of Exchange, Homo Donans, and The Gift in the Heart of Language, the Maternal Source for Meaning. She's edited 2 other books and a volume in the Canadian Women's Study Journal dedicated to the maternal gift economy, which appeared in 2020. Welcome, Genevieve. We're very excited to hear what you have to share about the truth in a world of lies.
Thank you so much, Letitia. It's good to be here and be able to speak up about the truth. It's a huge issue, and I've been working on it, but haven't really gone into it as deeply as I would need to for the long term. So Diane is going to put up the PowerPoint that I've done. Change the, okay, this picture is of a stone face, a stone sculpture that is in Rome, and it's called the Mouth of Truth. And it's probably pre-Christian, for several centuries before Christ. And it is, I think, a picture, a sculpture of a Pan, of a nature god. And it used to be near my house and where I was living in Rome, and I would go over there very often and look at it. And it attracts the tourists because there is the story that if you put your hand in its mouth and tell a lie, it will bite you. Anyway, I love the image, and to me it looks like it's like nature speaking. And so I have a picture of it in my room in Rome, and I found this online, and I wanted to show you all because it kind of grounds us in the truth of nature. Change, please. And here are 2 truth tellers, Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. Julian Assange is still in jail in England, and has been, I think, 4 years in jail and many years before in the Ecuadorian embassy, was it, or Bolivian embassy? And his work on WikiLeaks really was a huge game changer, revealing all of the tremendous things that the United States was doing when it was saying it wasn't. And Chelsea Manning was also one of the people who gave the information to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange about what was happening in Abu Ghraib, in that prison that the US managed there, and the terrible things that were happening. So she was a truth teller as well. And I just wanted to show their faces and how the difference between the mouth of truth, whose mouth is open, and their mouths who are being shut up by basically the US. Chelsea Manning was in jail, but she was released. But Julian Assange is still in jail, and everybody is hoping he won't be extradited to the US, where he will have a much worse situation than he has in England. Okay, change please. Okay, the question is, why are we in a world of lies? I think the reason is that we have become unmoored from the maternal gift economy, which provides true nurturing at the material level. Otherwise, the child suffers and dies. This elimination of the importance of mothering gifting economy from our consciousness allows us to live in a world of lies of omission and commission, in which we see lying only as an individual defect of dishonesty, not as an important characteristic of an entire ego-oriented system. There's the economic lie. In order to know and to be able to bring the gift of truth in this situation, it is important to realize that the market has been exploiting gifts for centuries. That is its purpose. However, it presents itself as benign. Therefore, there is already a background of lies in which we operate today. And though people may have the experience of truth in their private lives, the public sphere is deeply altered, and those responsible for it become engaged in its falsified ways of communication. Moreover, ego-oriented patriarchy is integrated with capitalism and combines with exchange to create practical and abstract structures of domination in which the people below must give to or nurture those above. The reception of the unrecognized gifts of profit is the motivation of the whole gift denying and appropriating system. The gift of the maternal gift economy is other orientation, altercentrism, attending to the needs of the other, the child. It is the gift that is necessary for knowing the truth and being able to act accordingly. Daniel Ellsberg, who recently died, said this about the Pentagon Papers. I don't think there is a line in them that contains an estimate of the likely impact of our policy on the overall casualties among Vietnamese or the refugees to be caused, the effects of defoliation in an ecological sense. There's neither an estimate nor a calculation of past effects ever. And he added, the documents simply reflect the internal concerns of our officials. That says nothing more nor less than that our officials never did concern themselves with the effect of our policies on the Vietnamese. How can a national government act this way? And we have seen the same deception and lack of compassion in Iraq and Afghanistan, Syria and Yemen, but also in all the many other interventions in the Middle East and worldwide. So go back now. Our laws of commercial globalization also allow us to ignore the damage our corporations cause in the many countries they exploit. But see, for example, the positive case of U.S. lawyer Stephen Donziger's suit against Chevron in favor of the indigenous people of Ecuador. And he also had to go to court and was in house arrest for a long time for having won that suit. Even in these days, we have seen the public attention given to 5 people who died in the Titanic viewer submarine, while 700 people who died in the immigrant boat sinking in the Mediterranean were given less attention. That boat sinking in the Mediterranean is not unusual at all. Boats full of immigrants have been sinking there for a long time, usually without even being mentioned in the international press, and only occasionally by the Italian press. An Italian group counts 26,000 drownings in the last 10 years, but there are probably many more. One Italian man living on an island there wrote, "Fishing used not to be good here because the fish did not have enough to eat. Now that there have been so many boats sinking nearby, the fish have come back." It is clearly the lack of orientation towards the other, responsibility towards the other, even interest in the other, that causes this lack of concern, the inability even to say it is happening. Where does this self-absorption at the individual, the national and the international level come from? And where does the desire and the ability to give the gift of truth about these devastating situations come from? I believe it is not a moral issue, but an economic issue. We interpret as moral choice or flawed human character something that actually comes from the economy we practice every day. The lack of other orientation comes from the elimination of the unilateral giving from the public mind, the zeitgeist, because of the hegemony of the exchange economy and because of the widespread individual ego structure that is influenced by exchange. The whole system of capitalism, too, is responsible for this egocentrism, but without the gift-denying logic and interaction of commodity exchange itself, with money at its cold heart, capitalism would not exist. With this in mind, we can see that compassion is the basis of truth-telling on the large scale, and the lack of it allows us to lie. In spite of all of this, there is one area of capitalism that has to function directly according to the gift economy, and that is the so-called domestic sphere. Young children require unilateral gifting to them by their motherers because they cannot give back an equivalent for what they have been given, and they don't even begin to understand exchange until they are around 3 years old. Their complete understanding and integration into the system does not happen until their teenage years. Most women continue to do free gift work and nurturing in the home throughout their lives, even if they're doing work in the market. Change. Our understanding of the human being, of what life is, what our own lives are, is deeply flawed and misleading. We call ourselves mankind because we leave out the universal mother-child gift-giving and receiving experience and leave it out of our concept of the human. This is an elimination is already a falsehood that we in the West have accepted for centuries. Even if with feminism, more equality of women with men has been achieved, this is equality within a group that has eliminated the mother-child model from its own conscious identity. Recently, Sarah Blaffer Hrdy and Wendy Trevathan and others have suggested that mothering and even grandmothering were at the origin of human evolution in the communities in prehistory. The title of their edited book, Costly and Cute, Helpless Infants and Human Evolution, expresses this hypothesis. Change. Unilateral gifting is necessary for mothering because the baby or young child cannot give back an equivalent of what she has been given. This requires motherers to understand and attend to children's needs, satisfying them with something appropriate. I call this unilateral gifting, and I believe it creates the interactive interpersonal patterns of meaning that are the underlying matrix of everything that comes afterwards. Language, our understanding of our surroundings, family and community relations. And last but not least, this matrix is the foundation of the economy. The quid pro quo exchange economy is just a distortion of the unilateral gift economy. But this distortion creates totally different motivations and effects. The elimination of this maternal model from our idea of economics and from our worldview has allowed us to absorb gifting into the market and exploit it. That is, to take gifts and not recognize that we are doing it. This is in itself a widespread and fundamental lie, a bedrock of mendacity upon which many other lies can be built. For example, we believe TINA, T-I-N-A, there is no alternative to the market, when in fact the alternative of the gift economy constitutes the essence and aim of the market, profit. The unpaid surplus labor of workers, the gift of the unwaged work of women in the home, and the gifts of so-called nature services are given by all to the capitalist who does not pay for them, and thus for him or her, they are free, though she or he calls them their earnings, profit, or money they have made. This is a situation of parasitism, in which the gift-giving host does not recognize that she is giving to the parasite because she is dependent on it for her capacity for life and for nurturing life. Nor does the parasite recognize and take responsibility for its parasitism. In a way, this is a system of mutual deception and self-deception. If we recognize that the exchange economy is draining away the gifts of humans, other species, and the planet, the still healthy gifting being in all of us can dismantle the parasite while understanding the needs for peace and maintenance of life that we can fill, which will allow us to save as much as possible of this endangered humanity, all the other species, and the continually gift-giving earth. Not recognizing the system of market parasitism and the gifting host allows free rein to the lies by which the system defends itself. Therefore, it is not surprising that commercial lies, political lies, and ideological lies are normalized, especially in these neoliberal times. On the other hand, altruism appears to be almost inhuman, a pose, a self-congratulatory appeal to exceptionalism and saintliness. Exchange. The logic of quid pro quo exchange began to be practiced explicitly in Europe with the invention of money around 600 BC and became an abstract model that contradicted and gradually pushed aside both peaceful matriarchal relations and patriarchal violence. Monetized exchange made inroads into individual and community relationships, which had been first based on the generalized maternal satisfying of needs together, and then on patriarchal dominance by force. With money, there was a possibility of a different kind of equality and value, a different model. Here's the picture of X amount of money equals Y amount of product. There it is. Notice the symmetry. While mothering gifting gives value to the child and patriarchy proves the superior value of one by dominating others, exchange seems to provide a different kind of evaluation, where the standard is the equality of objective quantitative value among things. In capitalism, this has morphed into a kind of equality that we use to evaluate people. The quantitative equality of the value of things that has been superimposed onto the value of people. Every time we exchange, we assert this kind of quantitative commodity exchange equality, instead of the qualitative equality of mother and child that we assert and create by giving and receiving. As Marx says, the relations between things take the place of relations between people. Exchange is profoundly different from establishing qualitative equality or similar identity between mother and child in daily life. This has been studied by recent infancy research, and they have found that the child and the mother reflect each other with their mirror neurons that help them know what each other is doing and feeling. And there is a like me bridge, a bridge that is it's based on kinesthetic identification between mother and child. You see, they both have their mouths open when she's giving the child the food. And it happens in a real life personal interaction that we know is true by experiencing it. And it functions by other orientation. The mother has to know what the child needs. She has to figure it out. And she has to give the child something that'll satisfy the need. And the child has to be able to receive it. Nurturing gives value to the receiver. That is, she feeds the child because the child is important to her. And that implies that the child has value for her. Next. In patriarchal capitalism, quid pro quo commodity exchange begins to be understood and to partially replace mothering gifting as the model for human interactions starting around age 3. Bribes like, if you eat your dinner, you can have dessert, or punishments like you broke the cup, go sit in the corner, prepare the child for quid pro quo exchange. For children, a second relational track of quid pro quo exchange, briefly though repeatedly, replaces the original track of gift economy relations. And later, with the older children's participation in the market and then as adults, it becomes the main economic relational track, though the gift track continues unrecognized. So you can see how the one track departs from the other, and it's made to depart through that little black box there that creates the exchange, the change. The black box next to the train tracks in the picture contains the switch, the hidden mechanism that makes us change our relational economic pathways from gift to exchange. Infancy research shows that babies identify with their motherers, mirroring them kinetically and with their mirror neurons, forming their own identities in these interactions. I believe the equation between commodities and money repeats this kind of identification at a material level. Instead of establishing a commonality, though, as happens in the mother-child relation, one commodity takes the place of the other, and only a quantitative exchange value assessment is given. If this intuition of mine is true, it would explain why exchange has such a widespread influence on us, and why people who have lived in gift economies often pick it up immediately when they are introduced to it. It is not because exchange just comes naturally to humans that it is so widespread, but that it is a repetition on the material plane of the basic mother-child interaction. This transposition would have a number of consequences that transform the interactions into personal character and logic from other-oriented to ego-oriented. That is what happens in the black box containing the switch of the train track. Some other aspects of exchange are the proof in reality that the objects undergoing the process of exchange are not given as gifts. So we have a whole other realm which is made out of not gifts. This removes them from the maternal gift economy, at least for the moment, and other rules apply. On the market, the products are not directed to any specific person, so they do not imply the value of the receiver as a gift would. The products are assessed as to quantity of exchange value with respect to all the other products on the market. Somewhat differently from gifting, this requires attention to the general categories of products and how they are produced. In order to be sold, the product is held in a store, unused and ungifted, waiting to be exchanged. As Alfred Sonraethel says, it is abstracted from use and thus provides an everyday model of abstraction that has influenced our thought processes in the West since the beginning of money in 600 AD. Sonraethel calls this process the exchange abstraction, and he saw it as influencing abstract science and philosophy. Here again, exchange influences what we see as the truth because abstract science leaves out the maternal gift economy. The general situation in which we are all living now is itself duplicitous. Gift and exchange continue to run parallel as unrecognized patterns. The original train track persists alongside the exchange track throughout life in capitalism. They are not equal, however, because, to mix metaphors, the exchange track extracts the gifts of the maternal gift track. Gifting continues to exist in the gift economies among those surviving indigenous peoples who have not been assimilated into the settlers' way of life and have not had all their original gifts extracted. Yet the settlers' economy continues to plunder what the indigenous people still have left. Even if mother-child other orientation is displaced by exchange-based ego orientation, it is not destroyed. In fact, it is still present throughout life at all levels of nurture and care, including communication and language, which require us to tune in to the communicative and cognitive needs of others, whatever place in society we have. This allows us to know how to speak the truth to others and how to detect lies. A reinterpretation of life according to the gift must be made, but let me just say here that this mother world is possible. Mother world view is possible, using a term that Aurelia Shadme used on her book. The gift of the truth is part of the mother world view because it satisfies the need of the other to know reality as far as the speaker can tell it. And it also satisfies her need for the sincerity of the speaker. However, at present, the construction of lies, that is patriarchal capitalism, already makes the truth hard to discern, and anything that effectively challenges the construction is punished. Categorization. The mother constructs a common gifting relation of qualitative similarity with her child and gives her value. Exchange constructs only the common relation of the products to each other as to exchange value in comparison to money, the general equivalent. That is, exchange is based on categorization, while maternal gifting is based on interactive practice. Exchange relations override maternal gift relations because they are more general and yet less individual, and because in capitalism, they are often necessary for gifting to be possible. Private property and the private ownership of the means of production make it necessary to buy the means of gifting. The gift of the truth is the gift of our human operating system, which derives from the maternal gift economy. Categorization divides up the field of knowledge, like private property divides the terrain of the commons. Each category is what it is in that it is not the others. Thus, morality is understood as a category of right action, and satisfying the needs of others seems to be moral, an individual virtue. This is not true. As I have been saying, satisfying the needs of others is the basic mode of the pan-human maternal gift economy and provides the underlying logic of our species, which is grounded in epigenesis as the replication of the care we receive. The idea that we have of humanity now that eliminates the model of mothering also interrupts our continuity with Mother Earth. Rather than seeing our own needs as adaptations to her gifts, that is, seeing her environmental niches as gifts to which our needs have evolved and adapted physiologically and socially, allowing us to receive them through work and ingenuity, we see them as potential commodities to be traded on a gift-denying and plundering market. A wider horizon opens up when we embrace the gift paradigm so that we can see ourselves as part of nature and the universe, as well as part of the human community of Homo donans, the gifting being. This is also the gift of the truth. I wanted to just mention the names of some important truth tellers. And I'd ask you all, if you know others, to please add them to the chat. Okay, read them. Vandana Shiva, the Women of Code Pink, Medea Benjamin, Jodie Evans, Claire Daly from Ireland, Jennifer Harberry, Greta Thunberg, Julian Assange, may he be freed, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Chris Hedges, Reverend Cornel West, who's now going to run for president, and at least there'll be one person telling the truth in the presidential race. Noam Chomsky, Glenn Greenwald, Gabor Mate, who tells the truth about our psychological situations. Aaron Mate, his son, Scott Ritter, Michael Moore, Bill McKibben, and there are many, many more, both internationally and within the USA. There are also numerous groups of truth tellers in different areas, and many anonymous activists who speak truth to power together and separately. There are many people internationally, indigenous people and oppressed people everywhere, who give the gift of the truth and are often punished or even assassinated for it. All of these people demonstrate that the gift of the truth is still present in all areas, and it is making inroads in the zeitgeist of lies. Here again is the mouth of truth, who is, I still see as ancient nature, speaking the truth to us, that maybe we can hear it if we become good receivers of the truth as well as tellers of the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. That was fabulous. So please remember to put your questions or comments in the chat, and also use the Q&A icon. So in the meantime, I'm wondering if, Judith, do you have a question
Jen, you talked a bit about morality and your interpretation of what morality means versus the usual way that it's interpreted. And I wonder if you could say a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think morality is a category of what we call right action. But I think that it isn't really that. It is our basic makeup. The right action is our basic makeup. Gift action is our basic makeup. And we are being deviated from it by the general society we're living in, by the market, and by actually also a way we have now begun to accept the lies that are told to us by the government, by advertising, by the whole milieu that we're in capitalism, because even advertising is a lie. It's telling us a lie about a product to make us buy it. And then we pay for that that lie that they're telling in the price of the product. I mean, it is just a big, what do you call those? Anyway, just a big joke that's we're made to accept as if it were totally normal. So I think what we do is we categorize good and evil and other aspects of morality and try to see if we're in one category or the other. And it's really not that at all. It's a question of, are we acting as human beings, or are we acting according to a kind of a puppeteering that our economy is programming us into all the time? So we need to go from our idea of morality into a deeper analysis of what's going on, which is also, I mean, if you understand that there is a gift economy, and those are the rules of, no, I wouldn't say rules, those are the structure of communication, of language, the basic structures of humanity are according to gifting and satisfying needs. And if you understand that, then you can find the way to change the whole structure of lying. That is what we're going to have to do as we pull ourselves and the planet out of this horrible situation. We put it in through the market and through patriarchy.
Thank you, Jen. Liliana, do you have a question for us?
Yes, I have a question from Marta Benavides. Marta Benavides says hello, and she says it's very important to discern clearly why we are in a world of vanities and all fake, because we have not lived up to now to the reality, which is a universe and paradise where the norm must be the oneness, which we are, which Jen's presentation is at the heart, at the core. We must discern these fake things and not conform to these worlds. But our call is to transform ourselves and the world by the renovation of our minds. What does this mean? To understand our stand and what it must be. Thank you. Abrazos, Marta.
Well, yeah, I thank you. I agree with that. I think we need to, we should have a group of people together trying to discern the truth from the false. That we should have that meetings every week or every other day or something, looking at different situations to try to tell the difference. And we should also all be very wary of the kinds of falsehoods that our government is telling us. You know, I mean, we've had so many lies that we accepted as truth. The Iraq war was based on lies, or justified by lies. That that they were preparing nuclear weapons and things such stuff. And then the whole Afghanistan thing has been based on lies too. I mean, they didn't do 9/11 themselves. Why did we have to bomb them and overtake them? And I wouldn't say our government, it just wants to dominate in a patriarchal way and economic way so many other countries. I mean, and so they justify it by all kinds of lies. And who knows now, what about Ukraine? I mean, I think there also has been a lot of lies, because we had an agreement in 2015 about not invading Russia and not having Ukraine part of NATO, and then that's what they're doing. They just turned it around, and they don't have anybody to answer to. There's nobody that calls them to account. Maybe a few people, the truth tellers do it, but that's not enough. And the general public believes the lies that the governments tell us. And then we vote and we say, oh, the one's lying and the other isn't, but they probably both are. So, and it's all run by money. I mean, the whole discourse is all backed by money, and they also use the money to invent the best lies, to find the best story to tell in order to convince people to vote for them. So, I mean, you wouldn't let your best friends or even your worst friends do that to you. You would get mad if your friends were concocting stories to tell you, justify what they did that they knew you wouldn't want. So I don't know. I think it's a very paradoxical situation, and it's not surprising that we have arrived at this point of environmental disaster, because in this situation, nobody can make a good decision. The governments don't make the important decisions that they have to make. And of course, the corporations don't, because they're all sold out in the exchange economy.
Thanks, Jen. And thanks, Marta, for your question. Judith, do you have another question for Jen?
Lori Amy has a very long commentary and series of questions. Before I read them, I just want to say that people did take advantage of Jen's question of the names of other truth tellers, and so the list includes Joanna Macy, Winona LaDuke, and John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago, and the people that he's influencing. So from Lori Amy, I want to return to your understanding of lying as characteristic of an entire ego-oriented system. This is resonant with the work in trauma studies that has identified a common response to trauma, the please and appease response, as an addition to traditional understandings of fight, flight, and freeze. In the please and appease response, the nervous system, in order to survive, has to learn how to lie, literally to tell the person holding the power of life and death over her what he wants to hear. So lying becomes habitual, wired into the nervous system as a survival response. This reflects also Adrienne Rich's work from decades ago about how women are so often scripted into this response. So my question to think through, and I'd love your thoughts, when early trauma. And I do so agree that capitalism and the exchange economy is an early scripting trauma, has wired please and appease as a survival mechanism into so many. What are the supports that help people to be able first to know their own truth and then to tell them? So the question, to summarize, is one survival method that many, especially women, have learned is to please and appease, which is basically telling a lie because that's what the other person wants to hear. And how do we get past that?
I don't know. I think probably the other person needs to be educated into a nonviolent way of behaving. And that might mean that the person who is traumatized needs to get support from some other area. And that has been happening in women's groups and anti-violence groups and various support groups. So that happens on an individual level. But the violent society that we live in, the traumatizing society, creates the environment in which the traumas happen and in which the appeasing happens. And so we also need to address the violent society and understand it's not only the individual problem, it's a general problem of a lot of people, of a mindset, of a zeitgeist that allows the violence and the appeasing. And then support groups, women's groups, do help in countering the trauma and by healing the trauma. One would hope that the appeasing is healed as well.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana, do you have
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question from William Rock. He asked to host and panelists, what will it take to restore this mode of being in our present world? What has to happen?
Well, I think that feminism needs to embrace the maternal gift economy, and that by doing that, to generalize it more, and also all the movements for peace and social healing and the environment need to embrace the maternal gift economy. But I'm afraid that might be a long road. And so I think that's what needs to happen. And in fact, most of those people are already motivated by gift giving. They don't usually connect it with the maternal, but they are gift giving people. And that's why they want to change things for the better for everybody. And that's why they try to tell the truth about things that are hidden and hurting people. So that's what I think needs to happen. But as I said, so there need to be strategies for doing that. Some of us are trying to create strategies. This very Salon series is a strategy in that direction. So it's really a question of how to generalize the maternal gift economy.
Thanks, Jen. Judith, do you have another question for us?
There's a question from Pat Herr. To me, one of the biggest and most tragic lies of our current days is that we need more and more weapons now to create a peaceful life. So you've already talked a little bit about the contradiction between peace and how we bring about a more peaceful world. But could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, and one of the worst things is spending all our money on weapons and weapons production and selling weapons to other countries and using war as a means of making the economy turn and function. It's just, profiting from death and profiting from killing. So there are two. Each problem needs to be addressed together with other problems, but also separately. And the proliferation of weapons is a huge problem. And it's a problem also on the individual level. Are we not even recognizing how strange it is that children go shoot up schools and adults go shoot up schools and malls? And I mean, that is just shows how crazy we've become. How awful, really, that the whole exchange economy and the whole world around us that it creates has a very negative aspect to it, which is driving people crazy enough to take those guns and go in and shoot up a birthday party. I mean, what kind of cruelty, what kind of craziness? Those are people that maybe think they have no other way of existing in the world than to dominate a bunch of people by killing them. It's really, it's tragic. There's so much tragedy going on.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana.
Yes, from Jennifer Weldon. These important insights are disseminated by an increasing number of leaders. However, all are human and also subjected to the fragmentation and inner conflicts that our cumulative culture has laid into our psyches and behaviors. I am seeing this to be a significant blockage, even among some of the strongest leaders, to move past talking to acting or supporting action. What can we do about this?
Well, I don't know how far the leaders are, which leaders you're talking about, and how far they are from us, from the general public. Because the leaders in power, the president, the Congress, and all, mostly profit from lies and mostly make a bunch of money. A lot of them make a lot of money, as you see by all the different revelations that happen. And the corporations are also very much in control. So how to do anything on that level? I remember during the Vietnam War, Robert McNamara's son protested to him against the war. And that did something. It changed McNamara's policy. I always thought that was a really great example of somebody doing something. And if people if the people in the families, the children of the people that are in the powers that be could talk to them. And they may, as the people who are going to be living in the earth disaster period of time that we're going into, they may do it. But also, I think that what else can we do? As I said, I think the feminist movement is a great hope, but it really has left out the mother. If you can't even use the word mother because they say you're essentialist, but the idea of the maternal gift economy is a more general thing, and it is not a question of essentialism. It's a question of an economy, a way of making a living and sharing what we have and continuing to physically survive, as well as mentally. So that is, we need to, and also mothering is not just about women. It's about men as well. Men have stopped imitating the mother and gone to imitate some patriarchal image of what they ought to be, when they really ought to be gift giving as well. And they can be, they are. And if you look at indigenous societies, a lot of them do that. I think at least my strategy, let's say, has been that what we need to do is to infect all of the peace groups, all of the alternative economy groups, all of the groups that want a better world with the idea of the gift economy. And that's what I do try to do. There are people that try to live the gift economy, and they serve as examples that it can be done even in a society that's based on the market. Although I think that is they're probably fairly isolated examples, but it can be done. And there also, if a country would decide to practice the gift economy instead of the exchange economy, even a little country did it, it would be a perfect, wonderful way of providing an example of how to do it. Or different groups could get together and each one try to do the gift economy in a different way. And there are many, there are like all of the eco villages all over the world that are trying to live a different way and have a different kind of economy. And a lot of them really do gift giving among themselves. So, I mean, there are so many people working for social change, so many people that realize what a situation we're in. But we need a common analysis and a common theme, and we need it quickly. We need to unite quickly and reveal the pernicious lies of some of the governments, people, and policies in our own and in other places. Because we create things like this war in Ukraine that are so negative, that didn't have to be that way, didn't have to exist, didn't happen to happen. And we don't have ways of stepping back from them when the other side responds, or when the other side starts something. We don't have ways of scaling down or calming down. We're too smart for that. Why aren't we doing that? That just comes from our own orneriness, our inability to use our intelligence to create peace instead of trying to make more money on wars.
You're very passionate about that, and it's so true. We are ornery. Let's check in with Judith and see if she has a question there.
Jen, could you talk a little bit about what are generally called little white lies, of saying something which is not quite true, but when for the purpose of making someone else feel better, or give them something that that the speaker perceives that the other person needs?
Judith, I'm sorry you asked me that because I really don't know the answer. I'm afraid once in a while I do it myself, and I don't know how to justify myself for doing it. I don't know. It's a combination between gift and exchange. In the sense you're trying to give a gift by telling a lie. It's contradictory as can be. So, maybe somebody else has a good answer.
Yes, if somebody else has some thoughts, please do share it in the chat. That would be great, because what we will do is we will put the chat up with our recording. And just to note, our last salon already has almost 80 views since the salon, so that the people are watching these recordings even after. So, Liliana, do you have another question for us?
Question is from Patricia Herr. It's more like a comment. Thank you, Genevieve. The first step after millennia of lies that have become even unconscious in our beliefs and paradigms is to become aware and to learn to distinguish between truth and lies, or illusion again. Your work is contributing so much to this process of awareness, which can lead towards actions and change.
Yeah, thank you so much. In fact, I agree that it has been a long time developing this culture of lies. When I was young, it didn't seem to be that way. We expected people to tell us the truth, especially our government. Now, I think we have to expect our government to lie to us. And that's part of the general degradation of society, of the U.S. society, especially the Euro-American white people, of this society that has, well, maybe it's just, the pigeons coming home to roost, because having been a colonialist society and made our money on exploiting slaves, indigenous people, other people in other countries, and now sending our corporations all around the world, allowing them to bring the proceeds back from other countries, having exploited them, and having made laws that made it legal for them to be exploiting them. All of this is a very negative system, and we're the beneficiaries of it, even if we don't know it. And if we don't know it, we are in the midst of a lie, or many lies, that we are not conscious of. And it's like I said, it's not a moral question. So I'm not going to be upset at myself morally, because here I can look out the window and see beautiful nature and a bird flying and all. And yet on the other side of the world, or on the other side of my town, people are suffering because of what my corporation, the corporations that maybe I bought something from this morning, are exploiting them. And my government has policies that have people going all around the world to disrupt other societies and influence them in what they're doing, and maybe make them make a war with somebody else, and maybe, find a way of stealing their oil or stealing their whatever other resources they have, or getting our corporations to go in there. And it is a real tangle of negative policies and negative initiatives that we don't face all the time. We don't recognize it. We live in a bubble without grappling with it. And even if we do grapple with it, it's too hard. What can we do? It's huge. So what we can do is shift the paradigm. We can join with each other, and we can together we can do to shift this paradigm and make it shameful for people in the government to lie, shameful for the people in the corporations to do what they're doing, to let them understand that they're also part of homo donans, and that they are diverted from who they really are by what they're doing and the beliefs that they have. Now, that may seem like a pipe dream also, but it's not necessarily, because there are times when there are consciousness shifts in society, and people begin to think of things in a different way. And in this period of time that we're so near to planetary destruction, it behooves everybody to try to find a solution, to try to do things differently. So I don't have all the answers for sure, but I do have a track, like a train track we should be going on, one train track we should be on instead of the other one.
Exactly. Exactly, Jen. It's always good to hear your thoughts. I think it's to Judith. Do you have a question, Judith, for us?
I have a comment by Lori Amy on Jen's question about little white lies. And Lori Amy says, Jen, you said previously, educate the one holding the power. So in those situations, social situations, when we tell a white lie to avoid hurting someone else, part of what is at stake is that the one person holds more responsibility for care than the other, or that we care for each other in different ways. She's thinking of her sister, who she does not lie to by commission, but does lie to by omission. There are things I do not tell her because I do not want to hurt her. But underneath of that, how much of this is also a fear that if I hurt her, she will not love me? To hurt her might make her withdraw. And of course, I will hurt so very much at the thought of her hurting. So back to Jen and what I have held onto as a model. I have seen Jen with such deep self-reflective capacity, a deep desire to know her own truth and to tell it, that this comes as a gift to other, an invitation. I truly do want to hear your truth. Tell me. We need to know, we need to understand, and this comes back to the maternal gift. So that's not a question, it's a comment.
Thank you, Laurie. So good that you're here.
And I can I have something else that I can ask you to comment on. I've recently read about some U.S. Supreme Court decisions that turn quid pro quo into a type of distorted gift. There were several decisions in which a rich person gave a money or some kind of benefit to a judge or to a developer, and the developer then or the judge then gave a favorable result to the law case, or the developer got a favorable review of their development application. And what the court said was, oh, well, if there was we agreed that there was a gift to the person, and we agreed that there was a favorable decision, but there's nothing to prove that they were connected. And so therefore it is okay, because we don't know that the favorable decision was as a result of the gift, that using their vocabulary, of course. And I just, I mean, I don't know there's nothing really to say about that, but I'll let you comment.
Well, it's obviously a bribe, isn't it? The gift in that case would have been a bribe. But it seems like the court didn't want to call it a bribe, and so it said there was not any consequence. It was not consequential. One did not cause the other, but that's all to be proved. And sometimes when it's so close like that, so similar to a bribe, it probably is a bribe. Like it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, or quacks like a duck.
Exactly. Quack, quack.
Yeah.
Thanks, Judith and Liliana and Jen. Liliana, do you have
Yeah.
another question for us?
I do. I have a question from Nancy Simpson. She has two questions, actually. And she says, one, what roles does the gay and trans community have with the gift economy? That's one. And two, how do you see your community evolving with an active, ever-growing gay and trans community?
Well, I'll tell you an idea I have. And that is that what the gay and trans community is that it is working. It is not, I wouldn't say working. It is bordering on a maternal economy or identity, but because it's transitioning into a non-binary, heterosexual space, maybe category space. And so it is not as connected with the patriarchal capitalism as normal heterosexual ways are. And so in a way, now this is my speculation, it is maybe creating an alternative space in which the gift economy can be accepted better because it is not binary. And as I say, men, heterosexual men, or anybody, trans men, whatever, can do the gift economy just as well as women, except that they just don't because they're educated in a different way, usually, and they have there are various psychological mechanisms that push them away from being like their mother, or being, and so in a way, I think it's kind of it could be the whole gay and trans movement, in that it is leveling sex, allows a space where everybody can do the imitation of the gifting that the mother does. That is that everybody can be gift giving and not have to create an identity that is counter to gift giving as we do in heterosexual patriarchy.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, some of my thoughts on that is, there's no favorite children of a mother. That's what my mother taught me. And that regardless of sex and gender, and loving preference, that there's no distinction. But that is not the Western notion. When you put the mother at the center, she loves all of her children. So I think with hetero-binary, patriarchal top down, that's where you get into the problems and the categories of trans movement and LGBTQ movement. But with the maternal gift economy, with women and children at the center, all children, that means males and females, mothers and sons, they're all equal in recognition. And in Indigenous communities, it's my experience being with other Filipinos in community, those questions just wouldn't come up because it's a non-issue, because the categories are just human categories. So that's kind of my thought. And again, it puts the women and the children at the center, with the mothers, the values of our humanness really being at foremost in our relationships. So that's just my thought on that. Yes, Jen.
Yeah, I want to say, let's see if I can say it better than I did before. Yeah, I think the mother, and even when it's a man that does the nurturing, and sometimes that does happen, the mother or the motherer is the model for the human as the unilateral giver, with the child as the receiver. And then they also alternate and do turn taking, in which the child responds or laughs or whatever, and the mother responds too. And so they both give and receive in a communicative way. And then there's also this proto-conversation and playing and so on, in which the child practices the ways of the mother. And it's in those early years that they learn the gift economy. And it is part of their the way that their brains develop. It stimulates their brains in epigenesis. And that can go on throughout life. In a gift economy, that would continue throughout life for everybody. But in our society, boys are told that they're not girls, that they're not ever going to be motherers. And then they have to have another model for who they are. And that is usually the father or another male figure. And so they are pushed out of the category of the maternal human into this alternative category, which is often the patriarchal model, a top-down model. And it also functions kind of in like the whole exchange economy, where a gift is transformed into a commodity, into an object of exchange. And so I think there are these underlying patterns that mess up the boy children's psychology right from the beginning in our society, by showing them convincingly that they're not maternal, and instead they are. And so that's the beginning of patriarchy. And if we can do whatever we can do to change that, is good. although I think that the whole gay and trans movement is hindered or hampered by its own exceptionalism, by its own ways of trying to find out what to do in this circumstance, and not thinking of itself as economic, but thinking of itself only as personal, individual, very individualistic. But anyway, that's my thought.
Thanks, Jen. Judith, do you have another question for us?
I have comments from both Lori Amy and Joan Marler about the mother-child relationship that seems to fit together. Lori says, the mother does not withdraw from the child crying, saying, I must be changed, I am hungry, I don't like that you're not here right now. The mother listens to understand what it is the child's experience. So I do feel a core answer lies with the maternal gift economy and the nature of the body speaking truth. Another sacred act of, and the sacred act of hearing the truth as well as telling it. So that hearing the truth is also important. And Joan Marler then says, you mentioned the kinesthetic dimension of giving and receiving the gift between mother and child. Do you see a connection between kinesthetic understanding in terms of being able to navigate a world of lies to determine what our inner being perceives as true? If so, might this be a nuanced way for us to perceive the difference between truth, lies, and little white lies?
Well, yeah, as to that, there are all sorts of ways that they have studied what gestures you make with your body and your face when you're telling a lie and when you're telling the truth. And so in a way you can look that up, and it has been studied, and people do it. People use it when they learn to sell you a car. They learn to imitate those gestures of your face that have been studied. So that's just something that is shows that maybe sometimes we know too much about things, and we can't rely on our own intuition that uses those kinds of cues. But I do think that in the beginning, the kinesthetic interaction between mothers and children, even, just holding the child and the child feeling it's being held, is an early experience that must permeate its life on towards the future as well. So that's what we consider real, is what our experiences have taught us, our bodily experiences to start out with. I mean, even in the womb, and especially in being fed at the breast is a way where the child actually receives from the outside something from inside her mother's body. And so there is that gift connection of nursing the child that for the mother is fine, usually, or can be. And for the child, it's life-sustaining. So it must be, for that baby, an enormous experience. And even with the baby bottle, they still are held and so on. But those are the original ways in which we contact the outside world, is in being nurtured by our caregiver, our mother. And I think that is the foundation of epistemology. How they could, all of these male philosophers for centuries never even paid any attention to that, to find out how we know the outside world. But first we were inside the outside world, which was our mother. And then we were nourished directly by our mother in the arms of our mother. So we learned it physically. Anyway, that's kind of going all around. So, and tell me again what the first question was of Laurie's question.
The first one was that it's important to hear the truth as well as to speak it, and to
Right.
hear someone else's truth. The truth of the baby saying, crying because it needs to be changed, or because it's hungry, or because it's feeling lonesome.
Yeah, one of the main aspects of gift giving is receiving. So giving and receiving are two parts of the same interaction, and you can't really do one without the other. You can't, if you give a gift and it's not received, it's really not a gift. And so the baby receives, and that is the purpose of giving to the baby and taking care of it. And that is the part in which you give value to the baby, because you know that you are satisfying the child's needs. And the child is important to you because it cried and you gave it food. And repeatedly. And the child feels valued because it has a repeated experience of needing and having its needs satisfied.
Well, but what if you, the child cries and you give it food when really it wanted to be changed? You have to hear what the need is.
Right, you have to learn. You have to learn, and the next time you won't do that. You know, mothers many mothers don't know what the child wants when it cries, when it's the first time around. But then they learn. They learn by doing, and they learn by making mistakes and doing better the next time. If we lived in a different kind of society where there were a group of motherers, the other women would or men that might have been will show us and tell us and know themselves. They pass it down. If the baby cries like that, it means she's hungry. If she cries like that, it means she's cold. If she cries like that, it means something else. She wants to be played with. There are lots of different cries of children, and mothers learn those, and then they know they respond to the specific need and not to some other need. So that's the way it comes about, and it creates this immediate contact with the world that satisfies your needs when you're a child. And of course, not everybody gets to do that. There are lots of children whose mothers don't have anything to give them worldwide and here at home. And so that is also another huge problem that we have in trying to create a gift economy. There's the philosopher Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Well, if he had realized that, if he'd paid any attention to the mothering side of it, he would have realized that he is not just because he thinks, but because his mother took care of him when he was little. And it is that interaction between mothers and children that where we recognize that we exist. Poor Descartes' mother died when he was 1 year old, so maybe that was the reason he wasn't able to make that leap. But I think for many people, we are not like philosophers who are unsure of the existence of external reality, because instead we live in a world where we have been mothered, to at least to some extent.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana.
Yes, I have a question from Carmen Alvarez, going back to the world of lies and the truth. Carmen Alvarez asks, how to find the balance when you already know the other person is telling lies?
Well, it depends what kind of relationship you want to have with that person. You know, you can, if you want to have a solid long-term relationship, it's probably a good thing to challenge them and ask them why they're lying and find out and help them out and let them help you out and all with things that might happen on that. If you're going to try to buy a car from a used car salesman and you realize they're lying, you just don't buy the car. Depends on what your relationship is, I think.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah.
Or maybe instead, if maybe you want to just assert truth all the time, you could challenge the other person.
Yeah. I see Aria. I'm looking at your I think it's a comment and a question, but it's not really clear about your thought. It's you're saying that it was a thought, a question that came in which seemed to bridge a question of compassion, fear of expulsion, or reprise. Can you say a little more about that? And maybe we'll have Jen answer your more deeply to your comment or your question.
I can read Aria's comment.
Okay.
First, a quick story. Exactly what Jen said. The last time I bought a car, I negotiated a price, and the salesman said, I have to go and just check that with my boss. And he came back and said, my boss said I negotiated a price that was too low for this car. We have to increase it a little bit. And I said, no, thank you, and walked out because I thought he was lying to me, and I didn't like that. So Aria's question, perhaps what we know as white lies is a crossroads of compassion, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings, and the embedded epigenetic abuse of slavery that requires appeasement, which lives in most beings' cells, including the early Europeans, through most, though most seeming not to remember this part of their history. That epigenetically we remember being oppressed and having to react to it in an appeasement way. Perhaps it can be an opportunity to delve within, to begin the healing that is necessary to move back into the nature of gifting, living in truth without fear and enablement. And then she says that that's a thought or a question that seemed to bridge the question of compassion and fear of expulsion or reprise from slipping into appeasement, because it's programmed into us.
Yeah, well, I think that we need to realize that our society is really difficult. If everything is falling apart, there's lies everywhere, and exploitation everywhere, and so things are difficult. And so it may be that you don't want to engage with somebody to challenge their lie, because it's going to make your life even more difficult. Are you called upon to to tell the used car salesman, you're lying to me, and you shouldn't be lying because that's the wrong thing to do. It's not respectful of the gift economy, or whatever. I mean, this would not work. There may be ways to get around that, but you know, I really don't know about that. How to. It's kind of like, are we proselytizing for the truth, and is that our duty, or do we need to do other things that where we can act in our truth with people who are like-minded, and try to create also even opportunities for other people who are lying to change. But really, it's not only that, it's the bigger picture that we have to look at. It's the bigger picture that we have to change. It's that where we create in the bigger picture an explanation that anybody, even a liar or somebody who's doing something bad, whatever it might be, can look at that and say, oh, I would really rather act in a different way. I would prefer to be in alignment with my original humanness rather than what I'm doing. And I don't know, that might work. But I do think we need to realize what kind of a society we're in, and therefore also forgive ourselves if we do make mistakes, or if we don't follow the line as clearly as we wish we could, or something.
Thanks. Thanks, Jen. Liliana, did you find
Yes,
another question?
I actually have a really good comment from Patricia Hurd, and she says, I love the word motherers because it implicates that mothering can be done by more people than the physical mother, and that mothering is not only what happens between mother and child.
Yeah, exactly. It happens when we're satisfying needs directly. And we do that. I mean, people do that all the time. You know, we needed some questions asked to be able to answer them. So you wrote a question, and you're not asking for to be paid for that. So, you know, it's a gift that you did, and that was a way of mothering. I mean, I think we need to really reframe so many of the things we do in terms of giving and receiving, and maternal giving and receiving, unilateral giving and receiving. And we do that by also understanding other people's needs. So, yeah, it's not just about mothers and children. It's mothers and children, what we learn as children, that model, it spread everywhere, into everything, using everything to interpreting everything in those terms.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, I'm very fond of that word, motherer. It's one of my favorite things these days. Judith.
There's some comment from Peggy. This has been a wonderful conversation. For me, one of the most valuable insights is to see the connection between the other orientation of motherers and the greed and lack of compassion of those in power. And she thanks Jen for bringing that out. So, and Frida laughed at the Descartes example, although she was sorry to hear about his mother. Someone must have taken care of him. And she says, I guess his being bedridden reduced his experience largely to his thoughts. So that phrase of his would not be terribly generalizable to most of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are just two comments. They're not really questions that in the chat. But along the lines of the little white lies, you know that one of the things that has troubled me is the question of when somebody gives a gift that satisfies the needs of another, but that harms a third party, or that harms someone outside of that dyad. And how that, I know you can answer it because you've answered it for me before, how that fits into the scheme.
Give me an example. I don't remember answering it before.
Sure. When I was writing the my salon on biblical women, and one of the ones that I would like to resurrect is Jezebel. And I think she was a powerful woman who could serve as a really important role model. But at one point, her husband, who was a real wimp, wanted someone else's property, and the other person refused to sell. And so what Jezebel did was get several people to perjure themselves in order to say that the landowner had said something negative about the king. He was then convicted and put to death, and her husband got the land.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a very clever ploy, but it did require, it got her husband what he wanted, but it did require a number of lies on a number of levels.
Sure. Yeah. Well, lies that there can be lies that are homicidal, which sounded like that. Those were. So you don't want to. They're not gifts for sure. Trying to think. I don't know. I mean, it's like a poisoned gift. It's a gift of poison. And maybe it was a gift to her husband, but it certainly sounds like it was very costly. That's it. It was more of an exchange because she had to give something that she bought with the lives of the other people. What did I say the other time?
Pretty much the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Great. Thanks, Judith and Jen. Liliana.
Yes, there's a question from Frida to Judith, and she says, Judith, does your question get into the terrain of moral anguish?
Judith, did you hear that?
Was that? Yes, I think it does get into the terrain of moral anguish, because as me as an outsider seeing negative things happening that I have no control over, and even though this is something that happened 3,000 years ago, it still was something that was wrong.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Liliana, did you have a question for Mary B.
Yes. Mary B wants to know, what is the relationship between spirituality and the gift economy?
Well, I think that the exchange economy stops or is a wall against spirituality. And the gift economy is opening to spirituality. And it is because it is in congruence or harmony with nature and with actually the universe. The sun shines on the earth, and the trees and leaves receive it. And then photosynthesis happens and animals eat the leaves and they live and do things. So there's a cycle of giving and receiving from the sun to the earth. And in many, even, the stars also shine. And there are many things that we don't know about the universe, but I believe that it probably does work a lot according to the gift economy. That is, according to giving and receiving, according to sending and receiving, if you want. At least light seems to work that way. And we understand it. We understand it because we have that gift structure in ourselves. But we also distort it when we use exchange instead, and when we do exploitation. So I think that we have this structure, perceptual structure, based on gifting that allows us, or would allow us, to really have spiritual contact with the universe. But we're always contradicting it, breaking it, using it in the wrong way, all of those things. And so we're not aligned spiritually as we should be. And if we were a group doing gift economy, we would be aligned with each other and with the universe. And that would be a good way out of our predicament.
Well, are there some final words that you'd like to say? That sounded like a pretty good ending, Jen, but in this world of, lies, is there something that you'd like to leave us with as a thought before we close out?
Well, I can say I don't really have anything prepared for that, but I can say I think gratitude is important. I'm very grateful for all of these salons and all of the dialogue that we have and everything. And I think that as being grateful is a way of understanding that we do receive gifts, lots of them. And it's a way of moving into the gift economy, kind of from the other end, not from the giving end, but from the receiving end. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Letitia and Judith and Liliana and Diane, the team that puts these salons on. And thank you, everybody, for coming. It's a gift that I'm receiving. Thank you.
I
Thank
have
you,
a
Jen.
quick closing comment from Peggy, that we should distinguish between needs and wants, that not all needs are equal. The satisfaction of basic needs is not the same as the satisfaction of more egotistical needs and the need for more and greater, and I think that's a really good point in terms of needs satisfaction.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jen, did you want to say something else?
Well, you know, even in mothering, that happens because you know what the child needs, and it's what she wants may be something else. So you have to deal with it a different way.
Thanks, Jen. So just a reminder, if you have a question or a comment, we really enjoy receiving your communications. So you can send it to us at maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com. So I just want to thank everyone for your attendance here today. I know there are so many things that you could be doing on a Saturday morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I would like to thank Genevieve Vaughan. And just a reminder that, yes, we will include Jen's PowerPoint with the recording. I think there was a question about that, and we'll put that up when we put the recording up at the maternalgifteconomymovement.org. So yes, thanks, Diane, for always your support, Liliana and Judith for keeping track of everything in both the chat and the Q&A. And thank you to the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network. It's your extended work, the work of infusing Jen's work into your fields of study, and also those of you who are attending. It is through your good words and networking that the gift economy continues to grow and thrive. In 2 weeks, we have Sid Rieger, the gift of organizing conferences. Sid Rieger is the president of the Association of the Study of Women in Mythology, and Genevieve Vaughan, who has organized both political and maternal gift economy conferences, will be speaking about that. And there will be others. Of course, I've organized also, and some of the things that I've organized have been more in the spiritual realm, but nevertheless, the gift. And then I just want to say on Saturday, July the 15th, Barbara Mann and Karina Kylo will be introducing their newly released book, The Woman Who Married the Bear, The Spirituality of Ancient Foremothers. Both of these women are part of the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network. So we really encourage you to put that on your calendar. The registration is open for both of these events. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. I think it's July the 8th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a look. Yes, July the 8th, in 2 weeks. We'll see you for the gift of organizing women's conferences. And I think it's so critical at this stage in our world that we gather women together. So wherever you are in the world, I want to encourage you to bring women together, to spread the good word about the maternal gift economy, and move towards life-sustaining action and world peace. So everyone, please take good care of yourself. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.